Welcome, everyone, to another night of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is the E2KG Network. We are coming to you on September 10th. This is the week of 9/9/19. Everybody had a little bit of Dreamcast love and remembered about an actual console with a built-in modem and a built-in memory card that actually worked as your little chow, your little Tamagotchi. Anyhow, but we are not here to wax nostalgically about 20 years ago. I mean, granted, we are a bunch of old men talking about video games, but tonight we've got some news. This is the deep dive episode. This is our episode here where we will go through the news of the past week and the last 2 weeks. Every other week here on the Enough to Keep Going podcast, we come at you with a deep dive episode of wrapping up the last 2 weeks of news. And then the alternating weeks, we come at you with the Game Experience Show. So here on the Game Experience Show, we're going to be talking about our playlist. That's next week. We've got an assignment. If you're wondering what that assignment is, I need to check my syllabus, but I will go back to last week's episode to check, and I encourage you to do that as well. So if you found us here, please go back and check us out last week as well. Join the conversation. We are glad to have you part of the E2KG network. So joining myself, my rambling self here on this Tuesday evening is Swissguard. Swissguard, you look like you just came out of your business workday here with your button-up shirt. I'm glad you dressed up formally for the podcast.
Well,
so welcome.
Well, Tuesday nights is my my evening, some evening work. I have extra work on the evenings on Tuesday, so I roll in, throw some food down my gullet, and hop on the interwebs to talk about video games.
Well, thank you for joining us. I did not roll in from work. Actually, I rolled in from mowing my lawn, but tonight we've got lots of good stuff to talk about. Today, we've had some Apple announcements around the Apple Arcade, but we'll come back to that because last Wednesday, we were dealing with the Nintendo Direct that got dropped, and 40 minutes of Nintendo Direct goodness. Osiris Prime is not here to join in the fun tonight, unfortunately, as one of our resident Nintendo fans. But also, Agasicles Stamos is out as well, and he would be here to hold our feet to the fire before we get too far excited for anything Nintendo related or Switch related. But let's spend some time talking about the Nintendo Direct. There was a lot there. I don't know that there was a whole lot of new, but there were we had a lot of sizzle reel. We had a little bit more information. We got a few surprises. And then we got plenty of Sakurai afterward, kind of talking about basically how Smash is pretty much his life at this stage. So, Swiss, did you have anything there that stuck out? I know you've got two Switch posters behind you there. So, is there anything there that stuck out for you as something exciting from the Nintendo Direct?
Well, we're definitely a Nintendo family here, so there's, even with Prime out, there's going to be enough fanboy gushing. But actually, like, I haven't had a chance to. I wasn't able to watch the Direct live, so I'm kind of picking up pieces here and there. But one of them, Super Kirby Clash, stuck out to me, which is like
so this came out it launched on the day of the Direct, right?
Right. The trailer's like, it launches today, and it and they said the first few levels are free, so it sounds like some sort of a demo. I haven't looked into it too much yet, but I know that it caught my eye because my kids have actually picked up Kirby Star Allies recently. Oddly enough, I have one of my younger ones. It's the kind of the first time she's played a game, and we're like, "Oh, okay, here's the Switch. created a user profile for her on the Switch that she picked out, the avatar, and she's wanting to play Kirby. And I mean,
So what did she pick for her avatar?
the little raccoon folks from Animal Crossing,
Nice.
and but Kirby, little pink guy, and he throws hearts, and every time he throws a heart and gets a new friend, she kind of giggles with delight, and it watching her play, everybody's like, you know what? I think I want to do another Kirby run. And so
Yep.
it'll be neat to have like a co-op Kirby like that would for our family. It's pretty cool.
So is Kirby Clash a co-op or is it like a battle mode?
It looked like you take on bosses as one
Okay.
of up to 4 people can play either couch co-op or networked or over the web. So I'm just kind of starting to see some of these trailers recently. I saw this one today, and I was like, "Ooh, that looks kind of cool." And yeah, you're taking on. That's just got in the and you'll be taking on looks like bosses. It didn't look versus mode. Had a bit of an RPG elements to it, like you kind of equip your class and whatever. Kirby can do jobs. But that was one. I'm sure you have some more, and we'll bounce back and forth because there's a huge list.
It really is a huge list. So I was thinking probably just grab a couple here and bounce back and forth. So the Overwatch edition that was leaked by the sake of having an Overwatch case. So that was not necessarily as much of a surprise. We got a little bit more on Luigi's Mansion 3 related to some kind of multiplayer pieces there with Luigi. Man, that is a weird name to say. I'm actually kind of interested in Return of the Obra Dinn. So this is a game that was on PC on Steam. It's by the same designer developer as Papers, Please. So that's coming to Switch. We get Little Town Hero. So this is Game Freak's little game. It seems to be maybe priced around the $30 price point. So it's not quite a piece, but some type of kind of RPG light aspect here.
Now,
Yeah.
what if I probably could Google this before I ask, but what have they done besides Pokemon?
So besides Pokemon, so you get Game Freak on the GBA did Drill Dozer. They did most recently they did Pocket Card Jockey, the kind of solitaire horse racing game for the 3DS eShop. They've also done Tembo, the badass elephant, on PlayStation 3, 4, and Xbox One. Game Freak's done bits and pieces here and there.
It's almost as if they get these little
Harmonite?
projects to keep them creatively fresh.
I think that is exact. That's always how I read it, right? Like Harmonite is like a rhythm side-scrolling RPG, and Pocket Card Jockey was horse racing and solitaire, right? Like it is when you're in the mental grind of figuring out how a teapot can become a Pokemon, that they need a little bit of creative opportunity to express themselves as well. So yeah, I actually, in some ways, I'm more interested in this game than I am in Pokemon Sword and Shield, more so because it's an unknown, where Sword and Shield feels very much like it's another Pokemon, which is going to be a great seller. And we got a bird Pokemon that shoots fish back at people, and a teapot Pokemon that is a teapot with a ghost inside of it. So somehow things like Little Town Hero feel a little more creatively rich than just figuring out how they fill out Pokedex. But maybe that's my jaded perspective.
No, I mean, you know what you're gonna get with Pokemon, and you mentioned it, as we were starting. We've been gaming a long time. I mean, I had Pokemon Red, and at the time I bought it, I was probably a little old for it, to be honest with you. Like I was kind of over their target demographic. So, we've seen a lot of Pokemon.
Yes, we have. As somebody who went to the original movie by himself because he was old enough to drive himself, yeah, we've seen a lot of Pokemon over the years. That is very true. So, also, some of the things we have seen over the years in terms of what to expect. Dragon Quest XI, they talked about that. Doom 64. Again, this is the Nintendo 64 version of Doom. A couple other games that we know what to
Uh,
expect
I'm gonna
out
interrupt
of.
you real
Yeah,
quick. How
please.
do you feel about some of these, like a Doom 64? Is there heavy clamoring for that? You think in the Switch, like what what benefit? What's the point really? GoldenEye 64, I can GoldenEye. I can see people like loving that idea just because of the nostalgia factor. I mean, that was a lot of our, for the Nintendo fanboy, that was a lot of our first like, real multiplayer console shooter.
Yeah.
And but Doom 64, I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't on my radar when I was a kid, but like it just seems like an odd thing to percolate up. You know what I mean?
I think that it feels like it's tied in. There's a couple other Dooms that were announced for some PC. It feels like it is kind of building. It's a relatively easy port to build momentum to Doom Eternal that's coming out this fall. It's coming out on Xbox and PC, and PlayStation. I think it's also coming day and date to Switch. So it feels relatively easy to help keep kind of brand awareness out there. For those people that could cash in on nostalgia, great. If not, it feels like brand awareness. I'm guessing it probably isn't too expensive to port, given that we're talking about Nintendo 64 game. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how much of the fog of 64 that it carries over with it. So, speaking of old games that are getting an additional life on the Switch, how about Star Wars Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy? Right, we get both Outcast and Academy. I guess I prefer Outcast because of focus on the Kyle Katarn lore, but Academy had some really neat kind of ability to kind of customize your own Jedi. They both have, well, yeah, they're both backwards compatible on Xbox One. They have both come out good on games and Steam and other places, but now they're hitting the last of the platforms with Switch and PlayStation. These are like 2002 games. Is that correct?
It's back there. I gotta be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played either of them. Um,
I mean, they were pretty impressive for the time. Jedi Outcast, actually, both of them have some interesting hooks in terms of kind of lightsaber combat, where you have potential for different stances and other things. Um, I went back and played some of, oh, what did I? I played Jedi Academy on Xbox this year because it came out on Xbox Live. It's hard to go back to. I mean, it is, right. I mean, I think that's the challenge of if there is not nostalgia for this at the same time that a new Star Wars game is going to be coming out on Xbox and PC and PlayStation 4 with Fallen Jedi or Jedi Fallen Order. Um, to have something like this, sure, it's going to cash in potentially on the Rise of Skywalker Episode 9 hype come this fall, but it feels like it's a. I would. Let me ask you this as a Nintendo fan: would you be more excited for this, or if they would have announced that Factor 5 was doing a remaster of what?
Rogue
Rogue
Squadron.
Squadron?
Yeah. Um, it's hard for me to say because I have more of a like a history with Rogue Squadron compared to these games.
And I
And
would think most Nintendo fans do.
right, and you know, we don't. I feel like Rogue Squadron is, as far as genres are concerned. Do we have a lot of sci-fi shooters? I mean, you guys were excited about Starlink just because it's like, hey, they have a little bit of a taste of Star Fox in it, and
Fair enough. Yes,
and
fair
maybe
enough.
it's an underutilized genre. We have plenty of third-person action games, and like you said, now they do them better. Like, can you imagine Jedi Outcast going up against Bayonetta or Astral Chain or something like that? You know, I think like a Rogue Squadron probably be a bit maybe easier to play, but this is I'm 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 not really able to compare, directly.
Sure.
I mean, you played Rogue Squadron, I'm sure.
Yeah, I played Road Squadron both on 64 and on PC actually. Yeah, I think the challenge probably I would think would be licensing and studios, where because there is an existing studio that did a little bit of work to get Jedi Academy up and running for Xbox again, that it's probably easier to tap into that. Where, truth be told, I don't really know what happened to Factor Five after Layer. I don't know what happened to them and who owns the rights to that, and that may be more of a difficulty just in terms of the corporate aspect of bringing a game across. Oh well, go ahead. I'll keep talking while you do. Let's. Yeah, please do, because I'm doing the same. Man, that is the game I was most excited for out of this direct, right? Like, that was surprised at some things like Deadly Premonition 2 or Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I was surprised that that's getting a remaster or an encore edition. But really, it was the Xenoblade Definitive Edition that got me the most excited because it, the first game I think is really a really solid story. The characters are more interest. Well, I like the characters there. I think Shulk. I think Shulk has a lot more because of Smash Brothers. Also has a lot more name recognition. So
That's what I was about to say. Is like, hey, most people know this dude from Smash Brothers, but have
this
they
is the
played
guy
it?
with the shirtless, swimsuit guy with a giant sword from Smash Brothers. Yeah.
Um, so this was originally Wii, right? The original Wii.
Yep.
And
Originally, we.
from
Yeah.
what I
Go ahead.
recall, like it's still fairly pricey at your
It was
local
a
GameStop.
it was a very late uh, translation. It came over. It was part of the Operation Rainfall, where there was a fan community that tried to bring over um, the Xenoblade Chronicles, Last Exit, and one other game, something Horizon, I want to say. For these were three different RPG games on the Wii, and so Xenoblade was one of them. It came over late. It came over to Europe first, which is why the voiceovers have a little bit of a British accent to them, and so it is pricey still. It came out on the Virtual Console on Wii U. Which, if you have a Wii U hooked up still, or could find where you buried it somewhere, it's there for $20. It's also one of the few games that are new um, 3DS exclusive. And as someone who owns it, it is a fine running game, but it is the graphics of it on the 3DS feel like an early, well, they feel like a PlayStation 1 graphics. They are
Yeah, that's
flat
sounds like a
polygons.
bridge too far.
Yeah, they're tricky. So this is why I'm excited about this. Like, I've tried this in different capacities. I love the story and the world. And so it's great to, it makes a whole lot of sense. Like if they can put this out, and I think there's an audience for it because of Smash Brothers. So this is coming in 2020, right? Next year?
I
Yeah,
keep
that's
muting
what's up.
myself.
Yep,
I
no, it's
did
okay.
not
It looks like it's
see
coming in 20.
the
Yeah.
date.
I don't know that they gave any date besides 2020. So, um,
Let's see any other games that tickled your fancy. We got Assassin's Creed: The Rebel Collection, um, which contains Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Assassin's Creed Rogue. And man, Ubisoft. I actually have Black Flag because Ubisoft gave it away free at one point. So they're just kind of dipping into the well. I have all these Assassin's Creed games that I've acquired when they have free weekends. Like when the Notre Dame Cathedral is on fire, they put Unity for free. I have that. Haven't played it yet. And I haven't really ever since the uh, what was the what they call the trial for Stadia?
oh yeah,
Project Stream.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't touched Assassin's Creed Odyssey since Project Stream, which I also acquired for free for doing Project Stream.
Yep.
But I mean, it's cool that it's out there, I guess, for folks.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it's kind of hard to say, like, does it? I don't want to go down like the whole Nintendo Kitty thing, but does it? Like, who's the folks that have Switches that would play this game? Probably have already played this game. I feel like somewhere else.
I think that's probably true. I think it will be this and The Witcher will be an interesting test in terms of how much does the portability of the Switch really matter, right? Like anybody could pick up either people that have additional consoles have found plenty of ways to pick up these games at a relatively cheap price. But does the portability of the Switch for being able to play some ship combat in Assassin's Creed Rogue or Black Flag, or ride around on your horse and see, now I'm escaping the horse's name, which is a goofy kind of funny name in The Witcher. Right? Is there a benefit of doing that in a handheld mode with the Switch? So I'll be curious to see how it sounds like of Gamescom and other impressions that The Witcher 3 is really running well. I haven't heard anything in terms of Assassin's Creed and how that it will be running here, but so we'll see. So let's throw in a couple kind of like, oh yeah, they're remastering that type of game, right? Divinity Original Sin 2 is coming. I don't know that was released or announced prior to this, but that is coming this fall as well. Deadly Premonition 2, as I mentioned before, is coming next year. Deadly Premonition 1 also released day of, as they are often inclined to do. Call of Cthulhu, Dauntless. We've got Dauntless coming up here. Dauntless was the Monster Hunter like free to play game.
And that makes sense, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like
they had announced that before. They just hadn't necessarily shown running.
Right. But yeah, that's a good fit, especially considering Monster Hunter World fans haven't. I mean, we got Monster Hunter 3. There was some side Monster Hunter that they re-released on the Switch, but they haven't gotten like the full experience. And then Dauntless.
Was that like Cross Generations? Oh,
yeah, something.
Yep.
But
it was a 3DS up-port. Yeah.
So that's good that there's the from what I've seen, it's the full experience, right? It's not like a watered down.
No, their whole conversation around it when Dauntless on other platforms released was that they're taking time to make sure that it runs well so that Switch players can experience the full game as well. So, yeah, we got lots of other games that we already knew, right? about Daemon X Machina. We knew about Tetris 99. Where they announced new Invictus mode for kind of super challenge mode. They followed up on the Gamescom announcements with Mario and Sonic at the Olympics in terms of the retro kind of skin in terms of playing some of the Tokyo summer games from 1964. See if you can fact check me on that. But again, there's some pieces there. One new game that they announced from High Res, which is Smite and Paladin's studio, they announced a Rogue Company game, which is a free-to-play, somewhat of a battle royale, but also kind of a squad-based game. That was a totally new game that came out as well, or at least that was announced. Anything else here in terms of whether new or old? This was a lot packed into 40 minutes.
We haven't even you didn't mention the Super Nintendo and Nintendo Switch Online yet.
You're absolutely correct. I did not mention even the
you were right. It was 1964, by the way. But
nice. Okay.
So jump from 64, like 30 years, to 1994.
Yes, to the later in the SNES's console life cycle as someone who still owns his original box of the SNES. So, and I was even a geek enough at that time to write down the date that I purchased it. How about that? Which was 1992. So yeah, the Switch. I mean, the SNES on the Switch. I am glad for this. I'm actually interested as well in the SNES controller because as someone who has toyed around with the idea of buying a Switch Lite for the D-pad, somehow spending $30 versus $200 seems like a better choice to get a D-pad. So how about, what do you think here? I mean, we've already downloaded here in our family. We've played around a little bit with some of these. This was a pretty, I mean, it wasn't a surprise to anybody, but I think the surprise was more about the sheer volume of games that they put out day and date.
Right. They decided to change, their strategy for how they roll them out. I like you said, I don't think it was terribly surprising that they're going to start tapping into that library. It is a little bit interesting because when did the SNES Classic came out? Like that was like a year ago or two.
I think 2 years ago. It was not. It was 2007, 17, right? Because last fall, I don't think we were talking about it last fall.
I want to say I've had it longer than. Yeah, that sounds about right. So it feels a little bit compressed. Like they do that whole classic thing, and they did it well enough where it spawned the juggernaut of the PS1 Classic and and some others, but from just a logistics, it makes sense to get get people playing. Well, we'll scratch that. Like, do you think if they had announced this and made the games 99 cents or $1.99 or something like that, like super cheap, do you think people would pick them up?
Yeah, I think people would. I mean, some of the bigger ones, I think people would pick up. I don't think people would have maybe come back to something like Super Soccer or Super Tennis or some of those other ones. But again, we get some really interesting ones here with Earth Defense Force. We get a Puyo Puyo that was never released. We get Stunt Racer FX using the classic FX chip, which hasn't really been on Virtual Console. We also get a Joan Mac 2. I don't know. I mean, I think the challenge here would have been if they would have gone the Virtual Console route with the Wii, that they would have probably seen. They would have seen some sales, but this feels like it's a really good value add for people who are in the Nintendo Online, and so if they're going to try to keep pushing that as a service, that this is a good way to bring people in there versus get a dollar or two out of a handful of diehard fans
Right.
versus
How
$20 or what is it, $30 for a family?
it's like 35 or somewhere thereabouts. How much of this is Nintendo's way of ensuring continued subscription? Because, like you said, like there's probably more. It's probably better as a value add, but it probably encourages people to just keep the subscription going rather than I'm gonna play Splatoon for this month, and then I'm gonna be busy, so I'm just gonna cancel my subscription and just not keep it month to month.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? I mean, both of us, everybody on this podcast, well, not everybody, but three of us on this podcast have all subscribed when it launched back last November. So we're going to be coming into that window of do we re-up? Do we, people that would have subscribed for the sake of it being a new thing, that this is a reason for them to stay in for next year. I think that's a good point, Swiss. Um, uh, any thoughts on any of these games? Anything? I mean, some of these we knew we shouldn't be surprised about, right? I mean, I think the surprise is more so about the way that they rolled it out versus kind of rolling it out on getting a few big names and a couple small names with the NES Classic, where here we just get everything, right? We get Zelda and Mario and Metroid and Mario Kart and all of those all at one big swath. We get Breath of Fire. Um,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, in some sense, I kind of like it because it's just what's the point in waiting? I mean, are we really say they announced it and we get Super Mario World and Link to the Past, right? It's like, are people going to be like, oh man, I can't wait for in 3 months when Yoshi's Island is on the schedule? It's just kind of, hey, we have this, come enjoy. I'm okay
yeah,
with it.
yeah. No, I think that's true. I mean, as somebody who was excited when Vice Project Doom came out because I remember the cheesy Nintendo Power cover. Um, I think this is a better model because it does kind of put it all out there for everybody all at once, rather than dole it out and hope that there's a reason why you want to come back and check it out.
Any other
So
Nintendo news that you wanted to hit before we take off
there's
from
a
there?
I think we've covered a lot here. So and we're a good half hour into the podcast, so I am just fine moving on. Thanks for segueing me as the host from getting down my own rabbit hole of SNES games. So the second half of the show, we want to talk about some of the other gaming news. We've got, as I talked about at the top of the hour, we had the Apple Arcade announcements, $4.99 a month, a variety of a whole host of games and a lot of publishers as well. And this was just announced today. We've got a baseball game by Gameloft. We've got a Choo Choo Rocket game. We've got Exit the Gungeon, which has been on a variety of other things. Pac-Man Party Royale, which is adaptation of the arcade game. Rayman, Shantae game, Skate City game, Steven Universe. We've got a bunch here. We get various Daylife. That was the game I was talking about prior to the show. This is a Square Enix game. It's by the developers of Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler. We've got a whole host of games coming, quote unquote, exclusively to Apple Arcade. I think the definition here will be interesting to see how much of this actually exclusive, as in they're brand new, like various Daylife, or if they're just exclusive to the platform, like Unleash the Light from Steven Universe, or um, Pac-Man Battle Royale, right? That has been out in arcades. It has been on, so how is it exclusive to a mobile platform? It'll be interesting to see how they parse that language. But So we've got Apple on one hand giving us a subscription service where we can download things in lieu of similar things like, let's say, Game Pass. Or but then we have, on the other hand, we have Ubisoft, which just came out this week with Ubisoft Plus, which is again another download subscription service. And then we get some news out of Stadia and Stadia here, and this is where I want to kind of spend a little bit of discussion time. Stadia is making a point to try to differentiate themselves, that they are not the Netflix of being able to download, that they are about being able to stream, being able to lower the barrier and not have to have an additional platform. All you need is a controller to be able to play. So the Stadia announcement here, yeah.
I was like, I think that's probably important because they don't want a bunch of people signing up for this thing and then being like, you know, what the heck? I paid all this money and I get my onesie twosie free games. Like, what about, I thought I was gonna have a whole library of stuff. They gotta control the expectations, I think.
Yeah, that actually seems to correlate well with our last discussion in terms of the NES Classic versus the SNE Classic, where the NES Classic was kind of building them out in a month by month games for Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus, and that seems to be the model that Stadia is taking in terms of trying to reiterate that you get a couple games for free every month if you're a Stadia Pro member, but this is not, and I'm trying to think who is the person here back um, that they announced, or they kind of try to remind us. So John Justice, part of a Stadia VP and product head of product, has a quote here where they are not. It's unhelpful to be compared to Netflix. That they're much more in the vein of PS Plus and Xbox Live in terms of giving out a game here or there versus an a la carte subscription mode.
And he makes a note to say part of that might have been the way we're launching, because the way they're launching is it's like the pro level service is the only thing the Founders Edition has, and like the regular basic, Stadia isn't coming on, I think, for another couple of months, right?
Yeah, it doesn't exist until 2020. So it's very understandable that there could be some market confusion about that, because that model, which they're kind of leaning into, is not even accessible to consumers until next year. I think another piece here, and I want to get your opinion here. I know that we've talked about that model and this on the Enough to Keep Going podcast before, because this feels like, in some of this, the news piece of this is that they have to get back out and continue to remind people that this is the model. Whether it was how they announced it, whether it was just kind of gamer perception and expectations because of the other streaming services, or if it was somehow how they messaged it. But they came out a few months ago before Gamescom to say this is not Netflix. This is going to be more like games for Xbox Live, where you get a gamer, you get one game if you have the subscription. Otherwise, you're buying them individually, like another store platform. But now here, a month later, they're coming back out to message this, and it's getting back out around the game press. So it does make me wonder how they feel that this message is. Is it resonating? Is it something where they're still getting questions from potential consumers, and so they're out there trying to make sure that they set consumer expectations accurate?
I'm sure that it's Google. They know what we're thinking, right?
That's true, right? They can tell us how many times.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, they probably have their pulse on it, but they're also combating consumers having equated anything cloud and entertainment with Netflix, right? So it's like, oh, You know,
That's a really good point,
we
right?
don't
Just the
have
whole
to.
marketplace
Yeah,
confusion.
it's just like, oh, I pay and I get it through the internet, just on like my TV or my computer. That's just like Netflix. That's I get on my laptop or my phone. That's just like Netflix. It is, you know. I think that's gonna have to. That's um, a significant uh,
Yeah, that's a
something
really
to
good point.
overcome.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to think
that is
of an analogy in like another like market that would
in
have
another
that problem.
marketplace. Yeah, it is a hard spot, right? I mean, it's that line that even like Amazon has straddled. Yeah, you could rent stuff or buy stuff, but we also have Amazon Prime. Um, yeah, there's not necessarily the same analogy here. Do you think that that hinders their market penetration? I mean, do you think that this is going to be a barrier to their low barrier of entry?
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be kind of it's going to be I'm eager to see how it plays out, because on the one hand I think the technology is kind of cool. Like I like the idea behind it. I don't really think it fits how I like to play video games. So at the moment, you know, I'm not gonna be on board, and it's just I've been concerned for a while whether or not um, the demographics they're targeting, like, you know, the PlayStation Plus players and the Xbox Live players, already have invested in hardware. So, you know, what is what does Stadia provide that's different? Unless you're really out in mobile, I think kids going to college and stuff like this is perfect for them, because they're going to have blazing internet, and you know they don't need to lug around a gaming PC or an Xbox or whatever. They can
Well,
just
they'll have blazing internet, but whether or not their campus firewalls are going to allow it is
that's
another.
that's true. Um,
As two people who work on campuses know that sometimes that becomes an issue.
yes.
Uh, I think you're right, though. I think that this is, as somebody who pre-ordered and has now canceled his Stadia, because it is right. I mean, I think for a segment of an audience that is not already invested in things, it's a great opportunity because that barrier is low. But for people that have already invested in other hardware, that to have the reminder, and I think this is the benefit, the part of the reason why they're out there making it here is that if you've already purchased that game or you got it from free, like you did with Assassin's Creed, you know, what's your inclination to go back and purchase it one more time? You know, how many times are you going to have to purchase something?
it
They do say in this news story that they are hoping cross save, cross platform. I mean, right? They're hoping for this integrated world because it ideally would help them and
right,
get people on their
and
platform.
I think that's why I don't think we should bury that, because I think that's actually a key thing. Like, uh, if they're concerned that folks like you and I, who have invested in gaming PCs, you have an Xbox One X, right?
Yep.
And you have PlayStation 4 Pro and PSVR. Like, you play stuff. Like, um, what's the impetus for you to get this? Well, the one thing they have in their back pocket is the portability. But for you, it's like I've already spent 30 hours playing Destiny 2 on my PC. Um, you know what's I don't
30 hours is
right
30 hours in the last week
in the
or
last
two.
in the
Sure.
last fortnight. Uh, so it's you know what would make you? I don't want to start over again on when I go on
Yeah,
my
right.
business
I
trip.
think I think you're right. I think that really is a real key benefit
So
here. Is
so pulling it's this. Hey, you want to be able to play these games on the go and then come back home and pick up where you left off. You have options, and I think um, as long as they keep doors open, uh, that would help. But if they don't, if that doesn't take off, it's hard to want to adopt a new platform. And then like I know you and Agasicles, you've talked about it, and um, you have friends in games on different platforms, and it's like Agasicles is, you know, he's he's at home right now, sweating bullets, like trying to decide what should I do with my Destiny, which Destiny 2 character should I take, which friends should I abandon.
Sure, right? I mean, there's a reason that he has a whole spreadsheet of what he's going to play what days, right? Is that for people that have invested in this hobby, that has been historically a challenge. Where if Google can figure out a way to not only lower the barrier of entry for people, but for the harder the the hobbyist to give them a reason to pick it up because their character is going to transfer, right? If Osiris Prime can bring over his and his son's Rocket League profiles, he's going to be more inclined to be able to pick that up and play it or plug in his Chromecast anywhere than he is to have to plug, plop down another whole progression and buy it and then try to level up and unlock or, you know, get his certain Hot Wheels cars that his son likes for Rocket League. Yeah, I think the cross progression piece, and maybe this is, I hopefully, I'll say this with a hopeful tone, is that hopefully if Google's got enough weight behind it that if they can help make this an expectation, that as we move into a next generation, they can help set the tone for that as well.
It'll be, I mean, it's exciting because this is the first quote unquote new platform that we've had that I think is, legitimately going able to adjust the marketplace. Not sure the best term, affect the marketplace, since Microsoft introduced the Xbox and we had, as you mentioned, the Dreamcast riding off into the sunset. You know what I mean? We've been kind of locked in this almost for going on 2 decades now. The triumvirate. So
yeah, right. I mean, we've had changes in control schemes with Connector. We've had changes in how we present that with the Switch, but more or less it's been you have a console that plays stuff, and this is the first time when we're kind of breaking out of that model. Yeah, that's a really good. It's a good point to consider here, Swiss, and it'll be interesting. I mean, again, this is coming out this month. That the Founders Pack is coming by the end of September. So
I thought it
we'll
was
know more.
I thought it was
Is it
November.
November? Oh, maybe I am. You're right. I am wrong. I thought it was September. Maybe that's just because I canceled it and stopped thinking about it. So yeah, there is. Well, which is just fine because there's plenty of stuff coming out this month in September here as well. We've got reviews dropping Borderlands 2. We've got Gears that came out last week. We get the new Monster Hunter expansion that has come out. In a week from now, we'll get back to Nintendo. We'll get with Link's Awakening remake. We've got a lot coming this fall. We've got some betas coming with Call of Duty. There's plenty for people to play. But again, if you're locked into a console to be able to play those, or you're locked into the progression on one console or the other, that if Stadia can provide the cross progression that it again hopefully opens up a lot of avenues for all kinds of gamers to pick up Google Stadia and play. So
Right.
Swiss, we have covered both Nintendo. We have covered some streaming pieces. Next week we're back to our GX show. Is there anything else in the news that has happened this past week you want to hit on or mention?
I did see a story that we didn't even consider for picking up, but I think it goes to how game it's a little bit how like some modern games have been. Uh, the new Hideo Kojima game, Death Stranding. There's like I think they almost call it a movie mode. It's going to be a super easy mode
Oh
so you can
yeah, yep,
experience it.
super, yep.
And it's kind of neat. Like I know we've seen something like that in Horizon Zero Dawn. If you just want to be able to go through the story, and to an even greater degree in some of the modern Assassin's Creeds, where they're really just going to where it's like
Sure, the education mode
yeah.
for them,
So
you just kind of go
um,
around.
it I'm excited about that game, but it also piqued my interest because it's kind of neat to see games the same game try to reach a broad spectrum of gamers rather than like used to, you know, we have one genre and we're going for the hardcore gamers here, we're going the casuals there, trying to hit a broader demographic. But I know that's a big topic for another discussion, perhaps. But
No, I think that's a good topic. It reminds me of Mass Effect 3, where they had kind of the story mode of it, where the combat was really simplified, and you were there to kind of play through the story, which seems like this is trying to do the same thing, which makes sense, right? Kojima is very much a storyteller, visual storyteller, and so it, I'm glad that they're putting this in here in terms of providing, again, back to the Stadia conversation of providing a widest audience possible, that if this mode helps others pick up the game that are interested just to see what is this, Guillermo del Toro and Mads Mikkelsen and a baby in some type of backpack chamber, what does this whole thing mean, that they have a way to experience it without having to figure out, do they use shoulder buttons or face buttons? How do they, right? I mean, they don't have to navigate nearly as much.
or get stuck in level like at the second or third mini boss and then drop it and never look back.
Yep. Yeah, I think. Well, and that's a very good point too, right? It's a way for people who may be frustrated or may hit a dead end to go back and continue to enjoy the game as well. So it may not be the reason that everybody comes to it, but it may be a reason why people stick with it. It gives them another opportunity to make their way through the story. That's a good point. So, so we've hit on the Nintendo Direct, we've hit on the Apple Arcade, we've hit on Stadia, we've got the story mode in the movie mode in Death Stranding. And that's coming out November, right? Is that Death Stranding?
I believe November is correct.
Okay. So yeah, lots of stuff in a time where we're kind of really ramping up to get into the release season. We still have a lot of discussion to have. So a lot of announcements, a lot of game news. I'm guessing that as more of these games get released, we're going to have other news to talk about. We've got, chances are, things may not be released in the most stable mode. So we may end up with a couple news stories related to game development and stability. We may get, chances are we may get a few box and financial stories or some legal stories, because this is the E2KG network. But again, every other week we're coming to you deep dive information, wrapping up the last 2 weeks of news. And the alternative weeks will be here with you to talk about our playlist, talk about what we've been playing, what we've been enjoying within our game and experiences as well. Swiss, we're heading off. We're wrapping up. What is on your quick hit playlist for the next 2 days? Is there anything here? I know it's been a busy time for your family. Anything that is on your radar that you're excited to spend a little bit of time on before we head out?
Fire Emblem. Continue playing that. And I have like my surprise game. My brother and I started playing Portal 2 co-op.
Oh, nice.
And
nice. On PC?
On PC. So
nice.
I beat it a while back on PS3 maybe, and
in your PS3.
we have it on we both have it on PC, and this is the first time I've done co-op mode, so that's kind of a
Cool.
fun little thing.
Nice. Nice. So while you take a classic game to come back to, I'm gonna also be. Last night I sat down this Borderlands 3 kind of discussion about releases and reviews and getting codes or getting Epic accounts rather than codes. Reminded me that I still have the Lilith expansion that was free over the summer. That kind of
Yeah,
bridge
the storyline, right?
Yep. So I booted that up, and it reminded me how fun and how much dumb fun Borderlands can be. So I'm playing through that right now, and maybe that'll tide me over until I figure out where I'm going to be playing Borderlands 3.
How long is the exclusivity on that for Epic?
Sometime in the spring of 2020 when Steam is gamed. So I think it's probably a 6-month, maybe more, in terms of Epic exclusivity.
It'd have been better if they had released in like the spring, because I think there's a lot more reasons to be able to wait for.
I get what you're saying. Yep.
I got other games. If I don't really want it on Epic, I can play it on Steam. Now, I mean, I'm not one that's super caught wrapped around the axle about it, but
Sure.
some people are, and it would have been harder. It would have been more tempting to pick it up had it been released in a dead zone.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, right. It would make it more convincing or persuasive exclusive argument if it came out, even if it came out in August, where there wasn't a whole lot yet before Control. So I'll also be curious to see, as back to our theme of being a grumpy old man gaming, as my son has played lots of games on the Epic Store without any hesitation, because he hasn't built up a Steam library, or not to the same degree. So if it changes some of the demographics in who's playing Borderlands as well, because of Fortnite, because of the Epic exclusive. So curious to see how that all plays out. Anyhow, any final closing thoughts here, Swiss, before we head out tonight? We are wrapping up and closing in on our 1 hour.
Nope, just typical. We started and we're like, it'll be okay if we have a little bit of a shorter show, and here we are, an hour
Exactly.
in.
That's exactly what we said. We're like, probably not going to get a full show out of this, but there's plenty to talk about. So glad you're here to join us while we talked about it. If you have any feedback for us, if you think we are totally off base or we are factually incorrect, even though Swiss did check my Tokyo Summer Olympics for 1964, if there are other facts that we missed, let us know. Put a comment down below within whether the video up on YouTube, or feel free to join and find us in the E2KG network on Twitter. But we're happy and glad to have you be part of the conversation. We will continue this conversation next week as we revisit our playlist show. So for myself, DBQ Hams, and Swisscar, this is Enough to Keep Going podcast on the E2KG network. Until next time, enjoy your games, enjoy your play, and enjoy your life. Good night.